Okay, everyone. I am going to probably make this a more higher produced one than the other one. But I went through this process of trying to get rounding, and I looked at the process for looking at bot profit, and they said they're updating the routine to try to do more than one rounding. Um, Anna asked for a little bit of help doing multiple rounding multiple numbers at once. So I decided I'd go and take a pass at that. And in order to do that, after some looking around, I use both Google Sheets and Integromat. If you guys use um, Zapier, sorry about that. Just this is what I ended up doing. So, as you recall from the last video, I had output the miles as a text field, and I wanted to update it, and I went in and make it a numeric field for rounding. So that was my first pass. So what I ended up doing is I ended up going in and adding everything as a text field and seeing if I could pass through, a lot of my value that way, but it didn't really work. So this is what I learned as I went through this process. Number one, with the free account, the API does not last that long. So you're going to have to go in and go back to this free, start using the API. It's going to generate an API. So definitely would get an account here. I didn't realize this was not shooting through. So you're definitely going to have to go into your API if you've done this and you're trying to, for some reason, you're insane enough to follow along with me. Save, and I am going to go into this one. This is the one where I do the distance calculation, and this is the API information right here. I save that. That was the first thing I needed to do, right? And now, because I wanted to calculate distance between 2 points, okay, I changed this to miles real. That is, miles real is text field. So, but when I just did that, it didn't work. So what I ended up doing was I ended up creating a Google Sheet. This Google Sheet had one column in this row, which I would dump in my value that came out, the miles round, right? This is the rounded miles that the miles that I wanted to work on that came out of the API. This would load in, right? So we'll get rid of this since I was testing it. Well, actually, let me show you. And then I created a query in Google Sheets. So if you've seen some of my other videos or looked at my group or have questions about it, you can always ask. I'm going to query this sheet and just bring back this column, right? Then I run a formula here to round this down to 0 decimal points. 0 decimal points and 0 decimal points. And I just use simple conversion formulas to convert it to kilometers, to convert it to feet, to convert it to yards. All right? But now, what I found when I was just trying to pass this value through into ManyChat, just by going out into insert a row and get row by value, because I first wanted to go in and just insert the miles number and then come back in and bring out the text values, the kilo, real, kilos. When I did that, it did not work. What happened was it stripped out the commas and the formatting. So hats off to Paul and your team for figuring out that this was a problem and kind of helping people through it. So when I looked at the routine was still being worked on were multiple values, I said, okay, let me just try it how I would go about it, right? And how would I go about it? I would run it inside of a Integromat flow. And I do a couple tests, and I'll walk you through what those tests are because that's important to understand. So you understand the couple things I've done so far. I've updated the API because in my testing I realized it failed. It was just because the API was out of date. And maybe a lot of people have been testing using this, or maybe I tested it too much. I don't know. But regardless, I just, for the sake of it working, I decided to go ahead and update it. And then I do still believe that going into Google Sheets, inserting the row and getting the row by value is a good idea because it saves some of the work I need to do on my end. So the next thing I want to do is I want to use Integromat. So I created a webhook in Integromat, and a webhook just captures data that you're sending out, and it's going to be an external request. Okay. And then this webhook is going to go add that miles value into the Google Sheet, into the raw field, into here, right? Then it's going to go back and search that and push that back into ManyChat. But, and don't be freaked out when you see this, but one of the things I found when I was bringing the data back into ManyChat, if you mouse over this, you see that Google Sheets, for some reason, is coming back in, and that value is coming back in as text. So when I simply brought it in just to format the number, to put the commas and the decimal points in here at the proper place, it was still coming back as that one straight number. It's extraordinary. It wasn't coming in at all, because it was asking me to format a number and give it commas when it saw it that it was actually text. So I found inside of the number capabilities inside of Integromat, you can take text and parse it into a number, turn it into a number. So I went to this parse number function, and you can always look at this. And all this does, it parses a string, which is a text string, as a number, and returns the number. So it'll tell you here, you parse this thing, you want to make it a number, and the decimal separator. So I put in parse number, decimal separator is at, and I put that here, but I wrapped it in format number, where I want to bring it in as the decimal point is going to be a period. So that comes after the end of parse number there, and right here, and then it should be number of decimal points, the decimal separator, and then the thousand separator. So all this is wrapped together, and then this is wrapped with this. And so I did this for the miles, for the feet, for the kilometers, and for the yards that came out of Google Sheets. So as you go in and look at adding things inside of Integromat, you can always go to a lot of the format number and parse number, and it's really verbose. And the thing I like about this is, for the most part, you can start testing out Integromat on your own. I do have a affiliate relationship with them, but way before I did, I use it a lot, and they have a free version. I don't get anything from the free version, so if you're interested in it, check it out. I really don't care. But that is how, and so in Integromat, I'm sending them, in essence, okay, to travel from here to here. Oops, I left my value from the original text. Will be this to this. So the short story is that, but what's happening here is I'm sending back a ManyChat text message. So where I was sending this back before, I'm not sending this back at all. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to add in the external request. And that external request is going to be the webhook from Integromat. So I'm going to redetermine the data structure. I'm going to copy that to the clipboard, because I want to know that it captured it, and I want to know it's tested. You must do this each time. And I want to make sure I'm sending full subscriber data, all the information, all the custom fields, right? Then I want to test this request. If I get this okay, and then when I pop over here in Integromat, this is green, tells me I'm on solid footing. So that's what I did. So I would save this, going to go back here and save this. And I realized that everyone was being very patient for me starting with this whole ridiculous process. So I decided to move the starting step just for testing here into the destination zip code. Actually, we'll move it up here. So would you like to understand the destination, blah, blah, blah. And we're just going to do the simple calculation. Let me take a look at this here. See if it doesn't look stupid, this formatted wise. Yeah. I'll move that. I did this just to help me understand. Yeah, I always say this okay too much. Okay, so we're going to save that. So that's what we're expecting this flow to come through. So I am going to go ahead Make sure this is published. Preview this. Okay, yes. Let's do 94109. Okay, my period's off, but look at that. 11 million feet, 3,441 kilometers, and this many yards. Remember, now let's go look for it in the Google Sheet. 21. Obviously, I've been using it over and over again. Round. It brought in this value back out of here. So let's actually test this without this in here so I know that I'm completely free and clear. So when I create this, it's just that value is going to be pasted all the way down. Just for your reference, this and this formula, this query is going to drop this into this column, so I don't touch anything in this column. But I put this formula in and I copy it all the way down as far as I can. So whenever a new number appears in here, these calculations will happen appropriately. All right, so let's try it in. Okay, so let's do something a little closer. 30307 is my starting point. Let's look at 02802. $900. Ah, that's what makes it stupid. I didn't put miles in here. So you can always improve the syntax, but really what the whole value you're always going to have the ability to improve your formatting of how you do it. The goal here was just to show you that we could come through, grab a calculation, and make it look presentable in there. So that's my answer right now for being able to round multiple. It seems like a crazy round robin process. Just to reiterate, what I do here is I get the data out of the API for the distance. I make sure I map it back to this miles number. I then go take that miles number that is created, I lay it into Google Sheets. Now that I look at this in post-production, I see the error of my ways because I was moving so fast. This step right here is not even needed. Not even needed at all. In actuality, because what I'm doing here, as soon as this passes back in the response mapping, the miles num, I'm just taking that miles num here and adding a row to the Google Sheet. The Google Sheet is just here. It's pulling it over into the next tab, running all these calculations. And then I'm taking those calculations and pulling those calculations out of the Google Sheet and putting them back into ManyChat independently. Therefore, this whole step right here, unnecessary. So as a matter of fact, if I was feeling crazy, what I'd probably do is just add this as another action under here. Apologies for the last minute armchair quarterbacking. I'm just a big fan of making this as efficient as possible. Now just test this to make sure I'm not insane. Let's go 1, 2, 3, Forza. There you go. Didn't even need those steps because we're passing that all in. So we have a more efficient process. And thanks a lot. That's the only way I was able to find. I'm sure some smarter people than I can do it. But let's see what this looked like when we ran it. Okay, let me save the scenario. Let's take a look at the results. Okay, cancel, leave, save. Okay, I was refreshing the list. Okay, success. These are my old ones, the tested ones. So when I look at this process, the reason I like it, I'm able to go back and quickly debug what happened. There you go. So what this is telling me what happened is after I click that button after it hit this external request, the external request dropped all that data, all those custom fields, right? Google Sheets added a row. They added a row to raw, and the value they added was 899, 881, and that was a result from the API. He then went back and searched the next tab and was able to look for where it matched what I brought in, and then it brought back in 900, 1448, this, and this, but it saw it as text. Okay? And as a result, we had to go into here and I had to turn it into that many feet, that many kilometers, and that many yards. And that's what we're able to do. And so if you've not used this in Integromat, all this fancy stuff is here. But if I go back to the diagram, your first time through, you're going to have to initialize ManyChat by the connection, and this is just using the token, so you need a pro account. You're going to need to obviously have the right subscriber ID, so you send this right message to the right person. And that's it. So that's really the process of rounding multiple numbers and bringing them back. So again, this flow link hasn't changed from the last one I sent over. I can put it in the comments again. If you can't find it, let me know. It'll just be an updated flow, and I will actually download this particular blueprint in Integromat, so you can go into Integromat. Let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to download this as a blueprint. Let's see, I'll call rounding 2, and I'll give you a copy to the spreadsheet, rounding 2 in JSON. So let's say I save this. This is what I would do in Integromat. I create a new scenario. I'd skip that. Okay. And what I would do is I would go import a blueprint. I would choose a file, rounding, and hit save, and boom, it brings in everything else. You're obviously going to have to go in, fix your own webhook. You're obviously going to have to go in and connect your own ManyChat, and you have to connect your own spreadsheets. All right. So again, I'll send you a link to this. And when I send you a link to this Google Sheet, no offense, do not ask me for access to it. Simply go to File, make a copy, because even if you request it, I'm not going to do it because you need to understand how to do that. And you should be able to toy around with this if you're looking to do things. So here's to progress and moving forward, making quick ways to delight your customers. And this is how I used a very quick and dirty way to generate rounding logic for me in ManyChat using Integromat and Google Sheets. Take care. And given that Integromat has a free version and that we're moving it back and forth using a free version and Google Sheets, the only challenge really will be is the complexity, and hopefully I've explained it enough and given you enough tools where you can go mimic this on your own. Have a great one and take care. Bye.